So if you're joining, just a quick introduction. This program is organized by We in Africa. We in Africa is a platform that is trying to lay foundation, trying to nurture where necessary, trying to promote, support, and give people leverage. At the same time, creating a support system for those who have startups or those who are interested, in beginning something. That's the purpose for which one of the purposes for which We in Africa was created for. So this Hangout is as a result of the mentorship program that is currently going on WhatsApp in a forum, where we are trying to, we have about 2 mentors who are well achieved, who are themselves as well entrepreneurs, trying to coach those who are there for what it means, the journey. And in this week, Maxim, one of the mentors, will be discussing high ticket closing skills. It's one thing to have a startup or a business. It's another thing to know how your business can meet the goals. So it's one of the things that we try to organize for this month. Every month we come up with something enriching, and then make people meet with those who are pioneers, not in the sense of being the beginners, but who are pioneering new path on that space. Today we are privileged to have our own Chris Chukwunta to discuss with. Chris Chukwunta is the Vice President of the International Renewable Energy Systems Incorporation. He's a United Nations affiliated technical reviewer. He's a national delegate at the World Federation of Engineering Organizations. He served as an appointed trustee at the Imperial College Union Trustee Board, and a member of the Trustee Board Governance Committee, facilitated the global stakeholders engagement for youth integration in industry in the Middle East, that's in Kuwait, in Asia, Japan, in South America, Peru, in Europe, Rome, and United Kingdom. Chris, maybe with time you'll tell us why we don't have this in Africa, because I have yet to read anywhere Africa. So we will be discussing the Hangout. It's not just for Chris to talk. The Hangout is for us to interact with Chris. Chris has his company. I hope I have the permission to say this. He has his own company, a renewable energy company in Canada as well. So he is talking as someone who not only have nurtured others to growth, he has also he's seen his own startup, grow maximally. Chris worked for Shell as an expert on different angles in the Middle East, in Nigeria, in Canada, and the rest of them. So Chris, welcome on board.
Thanks so very much. I see it as a huge privilege to be able to speak with every one of us on the call today. The first thing I would like to say is I'm not here to talk about the things that maybe I've done or not done. I'm here to just have a conversation with everyone, if that's okay. So as much as possible, I would really appreciate if we can, make it an exciting conversation for everyone. The other thing I really hope we're going to get from this conversation as well is that if there's a thought in our minds that we would like to share, I want to learn as well. So I'm here to learn from us on the call. So on that note, I would say, if you'd let me, Tony, I'll throw the mic open to everyone. But before I do that, I would do a bit of introduction. So the reason why I'm probably the one doing a lot more of the talking is because I've been very fortunate. In fact, I would say I've been so blessed to have great people around me. And just being on this call, I'm very positive that the leaders that we would expect to change the way that we develop talent, the way that we grow the next businesses for the future, the way we create an innovation ecosystem in Nigeria, the people that would lead that pathway forward are on this call. I believe that strongly. So that's why I really, when Tony mentioned it to me that he would want us to have this conversation, I was so excited, and I just cleared my calendar immediately and made myself available. On that note, I will say once again, thank you for having me, and let's have a conversation.
Thank you so much, Chris. In fact, to tell you how excited people were to have this conversation, earlier when I shared this link, immediately I got a notification that Mr. Charles Abani, who is the current Nigerian British diplomat, international development professional, and the United Nations resident coordinator in Ghana, immediately joined the conversation. I'm hoping to see him join back because I had to tell him in the morning that it wasn't time yet. Okay. And I also saw the brother, Mark Abani, Dr. Mark Abani, who is the coordinating dean of the 5 faculties of the Chartered Institute of Taxation in Nigeria, who was a leader of Nigerian community in the UK. Immediately he joined as well. That was when I shared it. So I believe they will have this space to be with us too. I see Mr. Chidi, Magnus, Ono, and a good number of people I would love to hear from. And like you said, Chris, I should call you doctor, because you know too well when it comes to, organization, okay? Not just the academic one. Just to mention, Chris was, he led a path that I am towing. Chris broke the record in civil engineering as first-class graduate, University of Nigeria, after a very long time. So he's not just an entrepreneur, he's also a genius. I call him a genius, like some of us would have heard me say. So Chris had earlier said, and that's the right thing, that this is going to be a conversation. You feel free. There is no boss, there is no ordinary person. We are all on the same platform to learn from ourselves, like Chris did mention, although he's leading the discussion as our guest tonight. So if you have any question to ask, Chris, you go ahead. Chris is here to have a chat with us. So Chris, before we start having questions, how has it been for you, getting to the stage where you are? I mean, you've led a very good team as a senior, a project manager or so in Shell. And then at this age, you and I know that office is quite lucrative. You decided to pull out to start yours. Why was that? Were you not fulfilled? What really led to this? Let's start from here.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. Okay, so I'll give it a quick dash. So every point in our lives, we come to a point where we ask ourselves what the future we would want for ourselves looks like. And I for smart people, like every one of us on this call, I believe, it's a question that always comes up like every once in a while. Is this the best path for me to achieve the most that I can achieve in this life, which is very, very short? Even if we live 100 years, it passes very quickly. Is this the best thing for me in this life? And the way to answer that question is to look around you and see those that have gone ahead of you along a path, what they've achieved for themselves and for the community that they live in. So I've always asked myself that question. And in answering that question, I knew there was more for me than the big salary at Shell, or the even if I became the CEO of Shell, I felt there was a whole lot more that I could do in beyond just the space in the oil and gas. So it was on that basis that I decided to launch out. Also, there's the biggest thing that can happen to an individual is coming in contact with a certain knowledge that changes the way you view the world and sets you on a totally different trajectory. In 2014, I was in
Sorry, Chris, your microphone is muted.
For how long? For how long? Is it like 1 minute or?
Since 2014.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chinedu. So in 2014, I had the rare opportunity to connect with a guy called Simon Molisa from Uganda. And until I met this guy, I did not know how clueless I was, absolutely clueless I was, as it relates to our history as Africans. Everything that I have learned in history were the things that I learned from school. A little from books here and there. But I reckon I never really read the books that showed me the real history of, say, Mr. Chukwunta Christopher and his lineage all the way to like maybe 10 generations before. When I got the opportunity to start reading those kinds of books, it changed my worldview. It shifted the way I saw the world significantly. And then also at that point, I started to read about the history of Africa, different countries in Africa, the whole colonization, and how it played out, pre-colonization, pre-colonial times, and all of that. And then that formed a new way of thinking for me. But I wasn't thinking that way until I came in contact with that knowledge. That's an example. I'll give another example. I was flying through Paris one time to work in the Middle East, because I was in the Middle East for about 3 years working for Shell. And I sat next to a guy who is the CEO of an IT firm. And we just got talking. And the guy mentioned a few things about Nigeria and about the things that drove the decadence that we see in the country today. And a lot of the things he was talking about, I was very clueless about. So it set a spark in my heart, and I went and started searching. Thankfully, I had access to some information that I could quickly get into and try to understand a bit more. And when I did, I was very, very surprised at the fact that a lot of the things that we consider a problem in Nigeria are from us as Nigerians, but a lot of them also are not really from us as Nigerians. That's a different conversation that's going to take a whole day or more if we dive into it. So the reason why I gave this backdrop and these two examples is the question you asked, Tony: why did I shift? Why did I leave the oil and gas? There were several reasons. But number one is I asked myself, 20 years from now, looking at those that have gone ahead of me, 30 years from now, where would I want to be? Would I want to be like those that have gone ahead of me in that line of business, or would I want to do something different? And the answer was clear in my mind. I needed to do something different. And maybe just to give a bit of exposition within 4 months. So I left Shell July 2021 completely. Like, I don't work for Shell anymore. Between end of July 2021 and middle of November 2021, the same year, I had the rare opportunity to stand in the same room with like any and every leader that anyone could talk about globally. I was in the same room with Obama himself. I was in the same room with Frank Timmermans, the Vice President of the European Commission. I was in the same room with, just name them, right? That would not have happened if I was still at Shell. And the reason why it would not have happened is because there's a lot of amazing opportunities to grow as a technical professional in Shell. But then along with that opportunity comes the restriction of the things that you could potentially do within the setup, right? So I had to break off that sort of chain, if I call it that, very cautiously, and fly, right? So yeah, that's the high point for me in my mind, why I chose to leave Shell. There's of course a few other reasons, but this I think is the main one.
That's quite interesting, Chris, Engineer Chris. One question people would want to know: is everyone meant to be an entrepreneur? You know, like if you read the Bible, it said there will always be the poor among you. Now, the question is, like, some persons will tell you, I started and it ended, you know, maybe I'm not supposed to be an entrepreneur. And it's one question that most people would ask: is everyone meant to be an entrepreneur? Or is it for a set of persons? From your experience, because you have explained, and from your explanation, it seems to be driven by passion, right? So if the answer is no, that means some people are not meant to be passionate. And if it is yes, then all of us, if all of us become so passionate to become entrepreneurs, who will be the buyers of the product of our entrepreneurship? What do you think?
So it's very obvious, I think, that we all are built differently. And I think the best thing that can happen to any woman or any man is to understand his or her makeup. Now, there are two things that drive people. Number one is their nature, and number two is their nurture. If by nature I'm not an entrepreneur, it does not mean that I cannot learn to be one, right? So answering the question directly, can anybody and everybody be an entrepreneur? The absolute answer is yes. However, it's not meant for everyone. Entrepreneurship is not meant for everyone. Maybe I drop a link. Let me find that link and just drop it. I see Mr. Chidi Magnus hand is up, and I'm going to try to round up what I'm saying in a minute or two so we can hear you speak as well. While we're doing that, I'll quickly pull a link up. I think a link that answers that question fairly well, and I've just put it in the chat for everyone to see. So I'll give a couple of examples in 2 minutes, and we'll go to Chidi Magnus. There are some people that find it extremely difficult to come knocking on people's doors to ask them to pay them either a debt or something that they are being owed. You just can't face people and ask them for money when they owe you that money, right? If you are like that and you haven't learned the art of getting your funds when you've worked for it, then naturally you shouldn't be doing a business that requires you to request your clients to pay you for the service that you've provided, whether as a consultant or as a businessman. You shouldn't. Another example is there's some people that they just don't even want to have any conversation about money at all. All they want to do is do their job and go home, or set up a grant system that pays for their services and then they are working. That person can be an entrepreneur, but the person is probably best working in an NGO where you don't have to go meet people to ask for money. Just sit back, write a grant application, get your grant approval, push it through, and then for everything that you do, you pass it through that grant approval process, and money comes into your account. Everything is okay. You move on. You don't have a conversation about money with people. You're good. Right? So to answer it very, in my mind, simply, it's different personalities do very well in different spheres. There are some people that the best thing that you can do for them is to give them a steady, stable job, pay them their salary every month, and they just don't like the trouble of thinking about their financial, the governance system or financial balance and all that kind of stuff that you have to worry about as an entrepreneur to succeed. They don't want to worry about all those things. They don't want to worry about anything beyond themselves, their family, and those that are connected to them, their friends. So if you start talking about anything beyond that, you lose them. Does it mean they are not smart? No. In fact, the people that have got most of the first class and high 2-1 categories, who like to just play by the rule, get their scores, get a high grade, and move on from there, fall into this category. Most people, most of the really smart people. I'll just draw the line there and open the floor for Chidi Magnus.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chris, for that answer. I will have, like you did mention before, Mr. Chidi Magnus Onoha. Mr. Chidi, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Tony, the moderator. I was expecting an answer from Chris when he said reason why he transited from the oil and gas to was just all of a sudden you came to talk about future, but he didn't learn about renewable energy and energy efficient sources, so to speak. Because when I saw his biography or background, that he ventured into an emerging area that is in line with the global thinking. So I was thinking he would have put that into proper context, but he was guided by entrepreneurship. Renewable energy and the efficient sources, he was futuristic. That's why it's a finite, it's renewable as against the conventional oil and gas that is, that is finite. That you have a time span between 20 or 30 years. I was expecting him to say that, well, the world is transitioning into what to call the whole gamut of energy transition, all right? And I was expecting that situation, times where when we had, it was, in those days, it was straw. From straw to, to coal, from coal to oil and gas, and now we're in the renewable energy. So, and that's the transition. And I think he's a young man. He's very. I like what he prediction, what he did maybe in 2014, or as the case may be. So it is important that we appreciate the fact that renewable energy and energy efficient sources represent the present trajectory. All of us are moving towards a low carbon resource efficient economy. The occasion by some anthropogenic activities that they want to call the climate change or what to call the global warming, and people have begun to think about the need to reduce emission in the world. And I think that's why Chris, I'm sure he ventured into renewable energy efficient space. And Canada represents one of the countries that are into that zero net now. The sing song now is zero net carbon. So it's an opportunity for, beyond the catastrophic effect of climate change, remains opportunity. It's a huge opportunity for everybody to laugh in. There are so many climate deniers. I want to thank God he's sitting with Obama. Obama was not a climate denier. Obama was a man who got into that, and it was renewable energy that actually gave him that election. So the point I'm making is that, Chris, we want to hear that conversation more. Most of us here within this space, we want to hear it. Let's look at the opportunities. What are you bringing from Canada into Nigeria with respect to the emerging opportunities? What I'm saying is that right now, I'm the National Vice Chairman, Steering Committee of Renewable Energy Efficiency Associations Alliance in Nigeria. Out of 8 associations that are,
network challenges.
Into this together 3 years ago under the from this sector into national life and this space. So we want to draw. Let's have more insight from what Chris will be, will drawing from Canada. But I think that's why this conversation is very important, because this sector it represents, in terms of present-day development thinking, it's a sector that can drive energy space. We wouldn't find that oil and gas still play a relevant role in the current global energy mix. We were saying in that let's begin to do something clean. People are talking about even oil and gas. Gas is more or less is cleaner. So let's look what are the opportunities. Chris will be telling us in terms of what is that. Why is it that this low carbon, the solution to this? It's a good conversation. Thank you so much, Chris and Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Chedi. Mr. Chris, the ball is in your court. What are you drawing on that aspect of energy, renewable energy? Mr. Chedi, the vice chairman or president of that sector in Nigeria, is asking, what are you drawing to? I think, I believe there could be some synergy beyond this scene. So, Mr. Chedi, I will give you, I will probably, or you guys will connect, so we'll talk beyond this space, because this limited time may not afford us all the time to discuss this. But Chris will just, answer quickly on that.
Yes.
Angle. Thank you.
It's in fact, Ogachi de Magnus. I really, I like the way you got me away from generic thinking to specifics. So when I was given the reason why I moved, I said many reasons, right? If I'm to focus on the reason that you gave, absolutely up. There's no question. Wow. Am I muted still? It appears I'm... Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. So you asked about the transition and the need to transition. Personally, there are several reasons why I left, right? One of the reasons I already talked about, which is the opportunities that there are beyond, what I could potentially get in that line of business, the oil and gas. Being specific about what you said now, there are 2 things I'm going to talk about. The first thing is I will address the transition, the need for transition. The reason why I was at the UN Climate Change Conference in October. I was invited to speak there, and that was where I got the opportunity to be in the same room with world leaders. And one of the things that I was talking about is the need to transition. I had the opportunity while at that conference to engage and try to influence policy direction towards renewable energy. Beyond Nigeria, of course, I had the conversation with the head of delegation from Nigeria, Madam Halima Bawa-Buhari. I had the opportunity to speak quite a number of the leaders in Nigeria that are directly involved in the environment at that conference. So I had the opportunity to have a few conversations there. But beyond Nigeria, I also had the opportunity to have conversations with stakeholders globally. And one thing that keeps coming back is the point you made, which is the need to transition quickly. I'm going to give a bit of background. I know a lot of people may not tie the background that I'm about to give to the problem that Chidi Magnus has just talked about. We're having a crazy, unprecedented drought in the Sahel area. And I'm speaking specifically about how it affects Nigeria security-wise, inflation-wise, and our general livelihood as individuals. There's a massive drought in the Sahel. The Lake Chad has dropped to only 10% of its size within a very short space of time. Because of that massive drought in the Sahel area, there's the regular pastoralists like herders and people who basically depend on their heads for livelihood. They either move down south, or their families and their cattle will die in the Sahel area. As a result of that, we see what we call Fulani headsmen moving down south, because if they remain up there in the Sahel area, in the northern part of the country, they will either die, their families and their cattle, or if they stay there, they die. If they leave, they also potentially die. So they give themselves a chance for life. They move down south. And in moving down south, they have those massive clashes with herders, because they go into people's farms with their cattle, and then they basically, if you come into my farm and you ruin everything, I'm going to push back. And that's why we're having the herders and the farmers having those clashes. With those kind of clashes, there's going to be food shortage, because of course people can't go to their farms. There's going to be, as a result of food shortage, there's going to be inflation, because there's very minimal work, there's very minimal supply, and the demand is high. Price goes up and you have inflation. There's going to be insecurity, because a whole lot more people are struggling to live within the very limited resources that is available in the south. So it's beyond just a career transition. It's an existential problem for us in Nigeria, and it's not peculiar to Nigeria. It's something repeating itself in different parts of the world. So it's existential that we transition. That point I needed to make. The second point I need to make, and I see you, Humphrey, I see your hand is up. Give me 2 minutes or 3 to just land this point. The second thing I was wanting to really highlight is Nigeria as a country is dependent almost 100%. Well, that's not correct. It's highly dependent on oil and gas for a lot of the things that we do, right? Highly dependent. Now, if we cut off oil and gas too quickly in Nigeria, the issues that we have already with sanitation, with water, with everything that we're battling with from a sustainable development goal perspective is going to suffer even worse. It's going to be exacerbated. So the conversation that I tried to lead while at the UN conference is what we call a just transition. We want to transit, yes. We want to do it as quickly as possible, yes. But then we want to do it in such a way that it is a just transition. It is something that does not throw us further back into a situation that we cannot handle as a country. It's not something that we want to affect the polity so badly that everything that we will potentially put forward for sustainable development in the country begins to get stifled. So what do we want to do? I'm very, very excited about the transition plan that the Nigerian government has put together. I pray that we're able to basically walk through that plan to actually make it actionable, and we deliver on those actions. When we are able to do that, by 2025, that's the promise of the government today, we're going to have more than 25% of our electrification through renewable energy. Do we have the foundation to make it work? That's the question. But that's the plan. I mean, just putting it on the table to maybe touch on that. And you notice I'm getting a bit passionate about what I'm talking about. There's a strong need for us to transition. It's existential. If we don't transition, it's going to affect not just us. It's already affecting us, but it's going to affect us even more. But we need to transition in a way that is sustainable and that is just. Right? That's the point. Now, why did I move on? The reason why I moved on, one of the reasons is I noticed there's a lot of people in the oil and gas that are super smart in Nigeria already. We need those people, a number of them, at least a good number of them, to move into the renewable energy space because they understand energy economics, they understand how to mature projects in the energy space. And when you move these people into renewable energy, you facilitate that traction and growth in the renewable energy sector to help Nigeria meet the promise that we've made as what we call as part of the adaptation plan, national adaptation plan. So we've made a promise that by 2060, guys, we're going to hit net zero in Nigeria, energy-wise. By 2030, we have our commitments. For Nigeria to meet those commitments, we need people who are already in the space energy, in the energy space, to transition into renewable energy and force that change. I actually started in Nigeria. What I'm doing in Canada today, I started in Nigeria. I had issues in Nigeria. And then when I thought about it, it's probably best, my thought, probably best to go out, make something solid, develop a system and a structure that works, and then move that system and structure that works in Nigeria. It's a lot easier to do that than to try to grow it in Nigeria, in my opinion. And that was why I moved. There's a lot of stories that I could potentially share, but I'll leave it at that. The last point I'm going to make, I'm sorry, Humphrey, I've kept your hand up a bit too long. Each and every one of us on this call, I beg us, let us look at the things that we could do individually to help the energy transition. You don't have to put in money, right? It mustn't be money. It may just be trying to learn about how a solar panel works. It may just be learning how a wind turbine works. Just spend a bit of time and try to understand something about renewable energy so that when the opportunity comes, you are able to leverage on that opportunity to facilitate or at least expedite the growth that we really need to have in the renewable energy industry in Nigeria. Okay, so I hope I've been able to address the first part of your question. I'm going to come back to the second part, which is what opportunities are there globally that we in Nigeria in the renewable energy sector can latch onto to facilitate and expedite growth in Nigeria, renewable energy systems, that growth in Nigeria. I'll answer that question after Humphrey. So Humphrey, over to you, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Humphrey. I just want to use this opportunity to thank everybody who is participating on this wonderful global Zoom meeting. I want to specifically thank Tony, the moderator, and Chris again. Though what I wanted to ask actually was actually touched by the previous person that has the floor, which is Chris. Which is shared. Sorry for that. My question I want to ask: this renewable energy, how is it going to be accessible to the rural community in Nigeria, and how affordable will it be? Too, because we coming from Nigeria, we know that Nigeria is suffering from a very lack of energy and energy distribution, transmission, and all that. We don't have electricity in Nigeria, so I just want to find out how the rural community will be able to benefit in this renewable energy, and the cost, probably how the cost, what will be the cost for the rural community, poor rural community who want to be able to tap from this wonderful opportunity if it is available in Nigeria. And again, if somebody wants to invest, probably somebody want to invest on such ventures, what does it take for somebody to invest if somebody actually want to tap in this type of venture? Thank you.
Tony, if it's okay, I would like to maybe take Pagai as well, and then we can answer both questions together, if that's okay.
Yes, I think you can go on. And just to mention to those other people, not everyone is in the energy sector, right? Feel free. This, if you are joining now, you might be thinking that this is all about energy. It's actually a branch of an entrepreneurship floor that someone asked. That's why the discussion on energy, renewable energy sector. After now, you can ask your general questions on the main topic as well, so that you don't look. If you have a question, you don't think, no, this is a different floor, so I should just keep it to myself. Feel free, okay? Thank you, Mr. Chris. You can take on Pagaye's question.
Hello, good evening. Mr.
Good evening,
Tony,
Pagai.
Mr. Tony and Chris. I saw this thing on the Tony posted it. I was very interested because when I saw renewable energy, because I'm into it already. I'm into solar, I'm into wind, and we're going even hydrogen, try to test biogas. So I'm very interested in this particular topic. But my problem is the former he asked, how can we make it easy for the rural communities? Because we go into it is very costly. I'm thinking if we can make it cheap to light Africa, not just Nigeria, because the problem we have is a power problem, energy problem. We have a lot of wind, we have a lot of sun, we have a lot of waste, but we are not making use of them. But I've seen this body, I believe it will go very far. But my own is in that if we can make it available and make it cheap for everybody, even for the artisan, any other person that can use power, even with barber, can you access lights cheaply? That is just my question. How can we make it cheap? Thank you.
Okay, so if it's okay, I will pull together the last three questions because I see how interconnected the questions are. So I'll just rehash the questions, just to make it succinct, and then I'll attempt to answer them. So the first question, which was the second part of Magnus's question, is how do we assess funds for renewable energy projects? That question is tied to the question that Humphrey asked as well, which is how can people in remote locations, in rural areas, access this technology? How can they have the kinds of network and funding that you require upfront for installing these systems? And then Humphrey also asked, how can we facilitate the investment opportunities that we've got within the country to also gain a bit more traction in the renewable space? And of course, my colleague Pagai, who's doing almost exactly what I'm doing here in Canada, has also asked a question about the potential investment opportunities. So one of the things I've done very quickly is to drop a link. So I've just dropped a link on the chat. Please, by all means, start by looking at that link. And I'll tell you why I say that. So when I was in Glasgow for the UN conference, I had the opportunity of having extensive conversations with the people that fund renewable energy projects globally through either the UN or the UN member countries or their sister organizations. One of those organizations is called the Global Environment Facility, GEF. Now, when the leaders of GEF were making a presentation in Glasgow, I was shocked because I saw that a lot of the funds that was allocated to projects in Africa, in Nigeria as well, particularly, are not being assessed. The money is there, people are not assessing the fund. And then I have a conversation with Pagai, I have a conversation with Humphrey, I have a conversation with really smart people who can actually go through the grant application process like a hot knife through a cheesecake, and they don't have the access to the information that the grant is even available. So one of the things that I'm looking to quickly get done, which I've started conversations with a focal point in the Ministry of Environment, in the climate desk, is how can we debottleneck the whole constraints that we've got around access to funds, because the funds are there. So that's the first point. In fact, to put a number to it, and I stand to be corrected, if I remember correctly, less than 30%, way less than 30% of the funds that has been set aside for developing energy, renewable energy infrastructure in Nigeria remains unassessed, remains unapplied for. So that's the first part. We can set aside, maybe in the near future, a few weeks down the line, we can set aside an hour or slightly more and just talk about the available funding structures for renewable energy systems in Nigeria and in least developed countries. Nigeria is not considered a least developed country, but in developing and the least developed countries, right? We can set aside an hour and just talk about that. So that's the first point. Now, the second point that I think needs to be made is, guys, if we wait for external support and external funders to help us develop our system, I'll speak in Niger terms, guys, we go wait tire. So with that said, we need to individually take advantage of the things and the opportunities that are available to us to force the change that we want to have, right? There are platforms online available to everyone to learn a thing or two about renewable energy. There are platforms online to learn a thing or two about grant writing. When I was making my introductory statement, and in response again to Magnus's comment, I said that there's a lot of things that people that are already in the energy space, especially oil and gas, can add if there's a bit more of them transitioning to the renewable energy space. One of those things which I'm championing very massively beyond just Nigeria is that the knowledge that we have as energy professionals, developing energy infrastructure, understanding energy economics, understanding how value propositions are actually matured through gates and make sure that they come out solid value propositions for energy projects. If we have people in the oil and gas who have this experience moving into renewable in Nigeria and for championing the writing of the grants that you would need to assess the funds that are available, things will move a lot faster. And I mentioned this in my presentation in one of the questions I had for the guys at the GEF in Glasgow. So there's so many things that could potentially be said in this space. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I hope I'm able to give a sense of, I don't want to call it a stay, I just want to call it a sense of belief in the fact that we as Nigerians will be the solution to our problems. If we wait for someone somewhere externally to solve our problem, we will wait for a very long time and still not have it solved. I also know of some facilities with the Africa Development Bank for renewable energy projects and startups in Nigeria that are extremely underutilized. So if you don't mind, Tony, I would say let's set a dedicated session for discussing energy transition and funding and availability of the infrastructure, and not just infrastructure, but the knowledge base required to help us do that transition. Let's dedicate a separate conversation, 1 hour, slightly more, to just talk about that. And then we'll go link by link. I've just dropped a few links on the chat, one link actually. So we'll go link by link. Let's go to the GEF website. This is the status of things today. What do they need to get the grants approved? Who has that knowledge? How quickly can we access it? Then it becomes a very clear thing. We're showing very clearly the things that need to be done to get you the funds you need to actually do those infrastructure projects. Agai, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes.
Okay. Just to test again, Humphrey, with a show of hands or just responding directly, and Chidi Magnus, I don't know if I've responded to the points that you raised.
Yes. I think we need more. We just need more information about this probably the fund and whatever thing that it takes. So, and you have actually answered my question, but you have to learn more about all this energy and the funds and everything that has to do with it, so that we can be able to push on. Thank you.
Thanks. Chidi Magnus, please.
Hello, Chidi. Are you still there?
Yeah, Chris, I think it's very insightful. I'm surprised I didn't see you at the COP. I was there too. I was there. I was at the Commonwealth Pavilion, opposite Nigerian stand. I did on this same energy transition on the position of Secretary General of the Commonwealth. We did NDC implementation index and the energy transition. And we talked about the GF, the challenges of GF funding, and of course, we're making a case for Bank of Industry and the Development Bank of Nigeria to be an implementing entity. For you to access this fund, there's a process, just like Ed pointed out. It's not just bonds that you just go to the market and pick. You must be doing mitigation and adaptation process. But I made a case for Bank of Industry, Development Bank, and NASAL for if we have a direct funding, if we have a direct asset to fund, instead of third-party funding windows for us, it is going to be advantageous. When you have a third-party funding window like UNDP or UNF, getting the asset, 87% of the cost goes to administrative and it goes to the developed world. So the impact will not be much. So we're looking forward to, yes, look forward to have Nigerian company organization having access to that. Even African Development Bank is also constrained. Yeah, so we are making a strong case for DBN, Development Bank of Nigeria, and NASA, that arm of CBN, that into this credit lending for agricultural loans. So it's interesting. I'll just let the conversation next one be more about this. The barriers of GF. How do we get capacity? Not everybody, you must have the capacity to access this fund. First of all, you must be doing mitigation projects and adaptation projects that will ensure that the climate change is contained. So it's not just go. And so if we appreciate the next conversation, let's begin to look at how do we develop capacity at the individual or organizational level on how to access this fund, and also ensure that most of us here, like the man who's saying that, have a deeper understanding of this sector, which is very, very critical. And I also agree with Tony. Yeah, this is about entrepreneurship, but it is important when we saw the CV of Chris. What captured my My lesson there is as a vice chairman of Renewable Energy Limited. Exactly, it was my chancellor that sent this link for me, Professor Greg River. I'm a professor of economics. It's Greg River that sent this link to me, and interesting is a very, very, knowledge is inexhaustible, so we need to begin to share knowledge more. Don't hold knowledge. Share knowledge is very, very critical. So it's a very, very insightful. I learned so much from a young man who's first class and who's done well, took that risk, venturing in or out of Shell. Somebody, of course, you would have been making your money in Shell, but you ventured out, and I think you will not regret your reaping the benefit. On the last note, I'm the executive director of HTV Renewable Energy Academy, the first of its kind in Africa. It's located along Asheshe Road. The young man came from Germany. He was supposed to build a 5-star hotel. And I did a needs analysis, and I told him, listen, Ogun State government gave us opportunity to build a 5, but I encouraged him to build a center on Renewable Energy Academy and go there now. I even took him to Strathmore in Kenya to understudy Strathmore. So, and at the end of it, I came back, I developed a curriculum on solar technology and management, the first of its kind in Nigeria, and it was approved April last year by Minister of Education. So we have a curriculum now on solar technology and management, and that is being housed by HTV. I'm the executive director, and I led that trajectory. So under National Board for Technical Education, MBT, we now have a JAM certified curriculum, a national diploma on solar innovation technology. You Google it, you will see. So it's a very interesting area. Those of them who say they are just learning this, I would like them to, even if you have a degree, master's or not, go and have advanced national diploma. It's what we are, in the process. So Chris, this is an interesting area. It's an area that I encourage everybody to, because we won't like what happened in oil and gas to happen here. In oil and gas, you will agree with me, Chris, from 1956 to it took 2007, Nigerian Content Act, that was so deep technical. It was a very, very administrative assignment for Nigerians then. They took the Nigerian Content Act of 2007 to see the light of, Chris, them being an active participant in technical area, deep offshore and all that. All right, but so we didn't like what happened there to happen here. So that's why everybody must be an active participant. The Nigerian Climate Change Bill that has been passed into law, I was secretary of the committee that drafted that bill. So it's an opportunity for us to, that Nigerian Climate Change law is going to give opportunity for everybody to invest. The investors will come in because there's a law backing renewable, even though we are making a case for renewable energy law in Nigeria, so to speak. So it's a win-win for us. Let everybody, join, be part of this mainstream. Like I was telling people that this is a digital world. If you remember, one of the arguments at COP26 in Glasgow, if not even funding is even the money, most companies are talking about cryptocurrency now. They are taking China and India and saying, the trillions of dollars are going to, but they prefer to go into crypto, not the fiat currency. So you see, everything is just changing. The narrative is changing. Let's move away from the docile attitude that the status quo. Most people, just like Chris, were very careful in discussing renewable energy. Most people, because they believe that the status quo. And let me give you an instance, because I know this is my 20th year in this space. I went to National Hospital to do retrofitting, made a proposal. The CMD of National approved, but the power that be said, how are we making money from diesel? The diesel, we need to have a clean retrofit National Hospital. People said, how we lose money from diesel every monthly if you retrofit. So you see, the power that be the best stumbling block. But right now, we have that challenge has been defeated because the federal government has come into mainstream renewable. We have a PPA assignment for 14 companies, even though the PPA was not right to only 2 companies have financial disclosures at 6 billion now. more than 90% no financial disclosures. They've not gotten there. Only 2 companies, one in Kaduna and one in Kogi, to this renewable energy space. So it's something that everybody must come into space. It's a huge opportunity. The young man who wants to invest, I want to be part of the association, the alliance. You can Google Renewable Energy Efficiency Alliance in Nigeria. Just Google and be part of that organization. And I believe opportunities are bound. And Chris, I would like to send you a link to, we're having a first national global conference, 1st and 2nd of March. That will be in Sheraton. And there are room for hybrid. It's a hybrid mechanism. If you're right there in Canada, we'll provide a link for you to also come and share your thoughts, in the process as well. So it's a good, I like this conversation. It's what I want to be hearing every time. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking your time. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for taking your time.
I like the conversation.
But thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can Google I spoke on Commonwealth. It can be Google. Just Google me. There's so many things we have done in the space. Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Professor Chidi
Oluoha, I suppose. I hope my chancellor that gave me this link, Professor Greg Ribe, the founder of Greg University. He's foreign. I was on another Zoom meeting, but I just have to joke. He knows that when I see anybody who's talking about renewable energy, that's my priority. That's my scale of preference. That is my number one. Because at the point we have at Gregory, I have set up an innovation hub, entrepreneurship hub on renewable energy. Already we have trainers. We have been doing solar home system. Stuff like that. Even if you go to our Senate building, we have retrofitted our Senate building. Most of the buildings are on solar. In fact, people should go to Gregory University through right there in Abia State. It's an example. It's an example of green university. We are not at 100% certainty, but at least 30 or 40% of those buildings are powered by renewable energy. So I'm excited, having this conversation. Thank you so much. Yeah.
No, it's really a huge pleasure to hear from you, Mr. Chidi Magnus. I mean, we had a lot of people at the COP, especially the Blue Zone. So it was the chances of having this conversation at the COP was possible, but highly unlikely because of the number of people there. So I'm really excited we're getting to meet. And I'm going to reach out to you and we'll continue the conversation if that's okay. One thing I want to quickly mention is there's the body that is working with the World Bank on advisory basis for climate action. The CEO of that body is called Stacey Swan. So I was on the panel, on the same panel with her in Glasgow. And a number of the things she was talking about are the things that you're talking about. So setting up a strong governance structure for deployment of renewable energy, first of all, awareness, then the infrastructure, which will help us to transition to action, is some of the things that I really would want to connect us to her, and we can have some conversations because she has access to a lot of things that will help us, our plans, right? So I'll put that on the chart, if that's okay. I've also talked about, I know you mentioned it briefly, but for the benefit of everyone else on the call, I've dropped the name, Global Climate Fund, Global Environment Facility. I've dropped the link. Somebody asked about the strategy, Nigeria's strategy for climate action in the future. I dropped the link as well on the chat. So please take some time to look at the chat and copy those links before the meeting is over. Of course, I see it's being recorded, so you can also get access to that information after the call. If it's okay, I know we're already, I don't know how long it's supposed to be for. Is it for an hour or slightly more?
It is meant to be for an hour.
Okay.
But so if there are still, I would advise whoever wants to stay can still stay. I mean, this discussion is for the good of those listeners. Chris, sorry, just a quick one. Someone who asked a question, got back to me on the chat to still say that his question wasn't answered. He said, please, this is 8802249 and so. First of all, this discussion is not basically for Nigerians. There are non-Nigerians here as well, but mostly Africans. So that when we talk about Nigeria, we can, if there are opportunities as an African, we can also extend to that also. And meanwhile, this person said, please, how can this help people who are yet to get something for themselves doing, or people who just, do buy and sell, and also people who are not educated as in certificate, but are willing to do something? How can they, is there a space for the non-educated? Like, let's take, for example, if you come to the world of software, right? The earlier person we had on this spot, Dr. Ikide Ikedua, who happens to be the chief of staff of the Montgomery schools in the U.S., Mississippi. So he told us of a journey of one of his sons who got into IT. He's currently working for, I think, for Microsoft, and will be leaving for Google next month. But the guy said, I am no longer interested in education. Okay, so bringing that down to what this guy is asking, what would you say in energy, outside energy? The space is actually about the same when we talk about entrepreneurship. Forget that we are actually on within the energy sector so far, but entrepreneurship. So in general, how can those who don't have certificates, get to their peak? Is it possible, and what can they do? Maybe you can use the example of the energy sector that you've been talking about.
Yeah. So one thing, maybe just to take a step back and give a bit of flavor to the question, is one thing that I've seen is a lot of the people who own the organizations that are powering the future are not necessarily the most educated of people, right? So one thing that has been a repeating theme across board whenever I have a conversation about youth integration in industry is that the people who come out with your first class, who come out with the high 2-1, end up working for the guys who are like the third class, or who probably didn't even go to the university, right? So, and that hasn't changed significantly. Of course, there's been quite a lot of change, but it hasn't really changed significantly. Now, with that flavor at the back of our mind, I would also want to highlight that the opportunity that someone who is educated or someone who tries to keep learning, a lifelong learner, has is the opportunity of having the first and most up-to-date information that will distinguish that person or his company or whatever the person is doing. So whether you are educated or you are not educated, what you need to have is the desire to learn. If you have that desire to learn and to grow, there's no question about the things that you could potentially achieve. I came across a documentary recently about a young man, I think from Kenya, I'm not sure. It's either Kenya or, I can't remember. But this guy wasn't like super educated, like he didn't go to university or anything. But he walked around this neighborhood and he saw a major problem with disposal of sewage. So what he did was he got a plan together to help people collect whatever sewage, whether raw sewage or the sewage that comes out from maybe your kitchen water, brown water and all that kind of stuff. He gathered them together, disposed of them in a truck, and got paid for doing that. But then he didn't dispose of them in a place that would have an environmental impact, negative environmental impact. He disposed of them in his own company where he extracted the brown matter or gray matter for making charcoal. So he brought that dried up shit, for want of the right word, and sold it back to the people he collected it from as charcoal. And it's a win-win solution for everybody. They are very happy. He's taking away their shit at very low cost, and he's bringing back the dry processed shit for the guys to use as charcoal. And it burns way better because it's got a bit more, for want of the right word, biomass in there, right? So that's an example of a very simplistic solution. What you need to play in this space and in any space at all is, number one, make sure that you're willing to learn, be a lifelong learner. The second thing is you must have what we call the third eye. What I mean by the third eye is anywhere you go to, you have to see the things that are not working. And a lot of the times, to be able to see the things that are not working, most people see things that are working before they can see things that are not working. So that's why there's very, very important, exposure is very important. A lot of the things we call innovation or innovative technologies in an area actually came from somebody seeing it somewhere else and replicating it in that area, right? So if you don't have the opportunity to travel, make sure you do everything you can to access the latest kind of technologies that are available to everyone online. Just get online one of these evenings, get online, search for the most innovative technology in an area that you're interested in. Document them, come out to your environment, look at how your environment is doing and what opportunities there are to deploy that kind of technology. Find the gaps in your environment, find the gaps in your city and plug those holes. When I came to Canada, that was exactly what I did. We had a fantastic idea that was, in my mind, one of the best ideas that will help to debottleneck the power sector in Nigeria. And we already started working on it with a group of my friends. And I could have taken that idea and replicated it in Canada. But when I came to Canada, it was not the problem. The problem in Nigeria was very different from the problem in Canada. So I had to sit back and look at my environment with the third eye and see what the gaps to potential are at the time. On the basis of the gap to potential, I developed a business plan, and today, thankfully, we have a thriving executive committee, advisory board, and we have projects, about 35 projects in our portfolio, and we're moving things forward, right? So the point I'm trying to make is what we know to be education, which is formal education, is important, very important, but if somebody depends on only education to make that transition or make the difference, the person may be short, the person may not be fully equipped to actually cause the kind of change or transformation that we would expect to have. So whether you're educated or you are not educated, what you need is you have to be a lifelong learner. You have to look at your community and see the gaps that are there. And on the basis of the gaps that are there, create win-win solutions that people will be happy to pay for. And of course, when they're happy to pay for your solution, then your business is going to thrive. So that's the way I'll respond to it. It's high level. I like to tell stories, but no one comes to mind except the one that I shared from I think Kenya. I'm not sure the country now.
Thank you so much, my brother Chris. Just a quick one. If you are interested in the renewable energy sector, it's a guarantee. I'll have a chat with my brother Chris, and then we'll have a time fully for that, so that when we sit down, it will be all energy that we'll discuss. I think I see a lot of interest. I'm also interested in that. Just about 2 years, I got in contact with one engineer, Obinna, whose company is providing renewable energy for rural communities. I wanted that to be, brought to my community. I did all the requirements, though we are hopeful that would still be implemented. And if one can get into it, if not for anything, for the purposes of, powering rural community, I would be so happy to do. So it's a topic and it's an emerging area. Like I would say to anybody listening to this, it's high time you looked at this direction. I remember when internet came in, I saw a video when Bill Gates was pitching the idea of internet, to the world, and he was being laughed at. Today, none of us can do without internet. In fact, this conversation is possible because of internet. Okay, so tomorrow, renewable energy would be the mainstay. When you talk about energy, I remember about 10 years ago, I think it was projected that in 2050, the US would have been on 50% or more of things that power US would be all renewable. So that's to tell you how the world is going. Everyone is going to renewable sector. So it's an area you would want to get into and not regret it in the future, rather than dwelling on what people are living. You can't be getting into the oil and gas, when everybody is running away from that. So thank you for that, for leading that discussion. It's a discussion we want to have again. Time and date will be communicated as today's event was communicated. So if you have any question further question with regards to entrepreneurship, you have Chris, who is quite experienced. Okay, even if you want to get into it, you can ask or type, or if you cannot ask, don't mind. Speak pidgin, speak the language at least that we can pick what you're trying to say. So Chris, back to you. My own question: outside the renewable energy, if you were to get into any other entrepreneurship startup, what would that be?
That's a good question. By this time last year, I was having a dilemma. The company that we have in Canada, we started in 2018, and I was having a dilemma whether to move on to developing some technologies beyond just renewable energy sometime about this time last year. And in the course of that thought, when I saw the kind of support and the kind of growth that we've got projected for renewable energy, I just felt that's the best way to go. If I'm not in the renewable energy sector, I'll probably be almost full-time in advocacy. And then if I'm not doing that, I'll probably be full-time developing apps and into the software business. So I think I'll stop it there.
Yeah, okay. Before you give us the ones you are thinking of starting next, and before you know it, someone is already doing it who would probably steal the idea from there.
No, I love that, right? I love to share. For me, it's not about the monetary gain. It's not about this being the first to do something. No, for me, if I see growth, that makes my day. And I don't care who's driving the growth. I just want to see growth, right? So I will be cheering whoever picks up ideas. If we talk about ideas today and then somebody picks it up and starts running with it and gets some growth going in that space, I will be cheering for that person on the sideline and giving that person any kind of support the person needs to make it happen and make it really blow. So that's my philosophy. Yeah.
Okay, Chris. Earlier before now, like I did mention that we will be rounding up if there is no other question after now. Earlier before now, around 5 p.m., I did mention that we had this time out with Baikide. And one of the things he told us was storytelling, to build on our storytelling abilities. He gave an example of how, in fact, Ikide was the third, I think I have mentioned this before, the third person, third black to be accepted into the MBA of the University of Mississippi around 1982 or thereabout. Okay, so he said that one of the things that then he had no money. and you need to source for funding, as the case may be. So he went to get, most of them were turned back, because of color, maybe, or, So when he got there, he started a story with the man who was awarding who would sign and you get a grant. And before he knew, the man told him, they got so deep into discussion, okay, that after they listened, he was like, I hope I haven't done the wrong thing. Sometimes we all panic, But he saw the signature at the back of where it is supposed to be. My friend, go and catch your money and go on with the school, with your programs. And that same thing, I believe, happened with Ben Carson. Some of us who know Ben Carson, when he was the first Black to do internship with the University of Yale. Okay, that's the famous Ben Carson. And one of the things that got him accepted was the fact that he got into, the one-on-one with whoever would assess him. And the man happened to be in a program the previous night, where the instrumentalists were awful. So somehow he talked about it, and Ben Carson picked it. He was also there, and he loves instruments, and they discussed on instruments, not just the business that brought him to the man. At the end of this discussion, Ben Carson said he was asked to leave, to go. Don't worry, just go. So he came out thinking some things may have gone wrong. Maybe he would have brought the man back to the discussion. But behold, that was the break point for him, or the breaking point for him. So for us entrepreneurs or intending entrepreneurship, what would you talk about? Do you have an experience where storytelling has helped you? How is it necessary, even in our own world now, to take in storytelling as well?
Yeah, so you've given fantastic examples, honestly, Tony. There's a lot of value in storytelling. Beyond storytelling for the pleasure of it, there's also a lot of value in having a very broad foundation on issues. There are so many examples that come to mind, right? So I'm going to pick just one. I was working in the Middle East. I know I may have touched on it a bit. And there was this guy, young guy, who happened to be on the flight with me. And we were just having a conversation. Just a conversation. And this guy was telling me, this guy is not Nigerian, he's from Europe, but he told me a lot of history that most people from Nigeria do not know about Nigeria. Right? And immediately I was drawn to this guy, and from having one conversation after another, the next thing, a lot of opportunities started to come out, and there's so many things that we're going to do together, right? That's one example. When I was at the COP, I was on the stage, and I just talked about the story of how climate change is affecting the polity in Nigeria. And when I finished, I felt, of course, I've made a presentation, it was a panel, so that was fine. After the panel discussion, someone who was in the audience, we happened to go for dinner together in a group dinner. And then after the dinner, this lady walks up to me and said, Chris, I was at your presentation today. I don't know if you saw me. Of course, we're quite a number of people, so you may not have seen me, but I'm interested in some of the things you talked about. Can we have a conversation? Right? And from having a conversation, before I knew what was happening, there was an opportunity to be in the Commonwealth Engineers Council board, and I'm there today. That's an example. There are so many examples. So before we get into talking about just storytelling, beyond storytelling for storytelling's sake, my brother, my sister, if you want to do exceptionally well and be at the front of growth and development as far as your sector or your space is concerned, you have to know more than your space, beyond the technical. You have to be able to have a conversation about what is going on in Ukraine right now, geopolitics. You have to be able to talk about things around, the climate action and climate change and the drivers of climate change, climate mitigation, adaptation, and resilience, that kind of stuff. You have to be able to have a conversation about literally almost anything. You may not have a deep knowledge of that area, but at least you need to broaden your knowledge base. Need to. And just like Ben Carson that you talked about, any example of storytelling that you see always comes from an understanding of a broader horizon than that person is playing in at the moment. So history, my sister, my brother have a good understanding of history beyond Nigeria. Even if it's just surface knowledge, but make sure you know something about finances. If somebody begins to talk about the financial sector, cryptocurrency, make sure you have at least a basic understanding, even if you don't play in that space, right? All the things that people generally talk about are things that you should have a basic knowledge of. And then with the basic knowledge comes a knowledge of trigger points. So if the person is going deep, at least you have a knowledge, because you have that basic knowledge, you have a knowledge of the trigger points. You can always put in one or two trigger points to reach in or enrich the conversation, and the person feels comfortable that, this person thinks in the same frequency with me. I think we can work together. Beyond, whether it's in the corporate space or it's in the political space or it's in the private sector space or it's in the public, whatever space you're looking at, the thing that makes people grow very quickly is the ability to strike a conversation, irrespective of where the conversation goes, with who you are having a conversation with. Very helpful. You can't overstate that. So thank you, Tony, for raising that point. Very valid point indeed, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chris. It's been indeed a wonderful evening for us down this side, and a wonderful afternoon, I believe so, or a tasking afternoon for you, having to go through, the walls, the boot walls, okay, and in order to make us feel the impact of your journey. Thank you so much. Is there any other question before we call it a night? Okay, I see no hand raised. Apart from Pagaye. Pagaye's hand has been raised. I think that's the question he asked. He hasn't lowered it since then. Thank you so much, Mr. Chris. I would, of course, you will always be there, I know. You are the people maker, so I won't be surprised if I knock your door the next time and you say I am available. So that's just been you, and I am so grateful. I also want to thank our mentors on the WhatsApp forum, those who have been championing the mentorship program for those who are interested in entrepreneurship and high ticket closing skills. One of them, the mentorship angle, is anchored by Engineer Chinedu Omenku, who happens to be the senior product manager in Huawei, and the next is Maxim Victory, who in fact is a young man that Chris, I would want you to know too, so we can groom. You have some people to groom. He's been doing so very well in that aspect of closing tickets. He's a graduate or has a certificate from Imperial College. Something like that. So thank you, and we appreciate. We hope to see you again. You can like our page on Facebook, We in Africa, on Facebook, and follow, if you can, subscribe to our channel, We in Africa, on YouTube, so that when we organize next event, you would be privileged to, have it or say it. Mr. Chris, we cannot thank you enough. Thank you so very much. May nature be kind to you for what you do for us, for Africa, and for everyone. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so very much for the opportunity to share. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I don't take it lightly. Like I said at the beginning of the call, the people that will change the course of our nation are those of us on this call, right? We are not expecting a savior from outside of, like, amongst us. We are the ones that will change the future of the country. We're the ones that would make the country the country that we want it to be. So I really appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation with you all, and thank you, Tony, for availing me this opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for making the time. I see it's already 10:30. Oh my goodness. Yeah, thank you so very much for staying till now, and we hope to continue the conversation. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, you can now sign out. We will always appreciate the opportunity to have you back next time. Thank you for coming.